This video is brought to you by Viking Jewelry. Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and if I use the word runes or runic alphabet with the general public, I'm sure that the majority of people will think of either elven or dwarven magical writing systems inscribed on either weapons, armor or scrolls, depending on the setting. But runes really existed, and they would be letters in a set of related alphabets known as runic alphabet, used to write various Germanic languages before the adoption of the Latin alphabet. The origins of the runes are shrouded in legend and mystery. Nordic mythology dedicates their discovery to Odin, the All-Father, the head god of the Norse pantheon. In the myth, Odin is described as a seeker of knowledge, willing to sacrifice almost anything in his quest, even that of one of his eyes. In the tale of the discovery of the runes, Odin hung himself from Yggdrasil, the great tree of the cosmos that cradles the 9 realms of Norse mythology. He hung there, refusing any aid offered by the other gods, and he stared downward. He survived in this state for no less than 9 days and nights. At the end of the last night, the runes revealed their shape and meaning to Odin. Of course, Norse mythology is particularly fascinating, but there is so much more behind the actual origins of the runes than myth alone. The runes we associate with Norse legends have deeper roots in both the Scandinavian and the Germanic tribes of Midland Europe. Today, we will explore the historical and archaeological evidence currently available and try to unlock the mysteries of the runes. There were 3 main types of runic alphabet. The first is called the Elder Futhark, the second is called the Younger Futhark, and the third is simply called medieval runes. The Elder Futhark consists of 24 characters and was used from approximately 100 to 800 AD. The Younger Futhark consists of only 16 characters and was used from approximately 800 to 1100 AD. Finally, medieval runes consists of 23 characters and were used from approximately 1100 to 1500 AD, evolving directly from the Younger Futhark. The historical origins of the first runic script are still debated. However, there is one general agreement. It is believed that the original runic alphabet was derived from one of the many old Italic alphabets used among the Mediterranean peoples of the 1st century AD. The specific origins of this script are unknown, but it was used by the Germanic people of Northern Europe, Britain, Scandinavia and Iceland. A likely theory of the origins of the runic script is that it was possibly influenced by the Etruscan and Latin alphabet, and it may have been created by the Goths. And now I'd like to take a moment to mention the sponsor that made this video possible, Viking Jewelry. Now, I'm really happy that Viking Jewelry decided to sponsor this video because I genuinely like their stuff. In fact, if you go through the majority of my videos, you'll notice that I do tend to wear jewelry, and the majority of their jewelry comes from them. For example, they sent me this tin bracelet that I like a lot, but this ring over here I bought with my own money. It's made of silver and it's absolutely beautiful. Not only have they got rings, bracelets, you name it, there's a whole range of jewels and items that you can purchase, but Viking Jewelry has now started to produce their own t-shirts, and they look awesome, such as the one that I'm wearing now that they sent to me, and it represents, of course, Yggdrasil. They've got a whole new range of t-shirts that you can choose from. Absolutely check them out, link in the description below. Once you reach checkout, make sure you enter the discount code METATRON30 for 30% discount during the next 48 hours on the products tagged first line. Alternatively, enter the code METATRON15 for 15% off during 10 days on the whole store. You'll find both links in the description below. So, what is the earliest runic discovery at present? The earliest inscription discovered was found on the Meldorf brooch in the north of modern-day Germany around 50 AD. The ambiguity of the text has scholars stumped on the actual meaning and origins of the letters, some believing they are runic and others arguing they are Roman. The earliest example of a runic text that we have that we can actually decipher is on this comb in Denmark and the one on this spearhead in Norway. Both objects date to approximately 160 AD. The longest inscription that runologists have to date was instead found near this city in Sweden. It contains 762 runes and tells the story of the deceased and was either carved or commissioned by the fallen warrior's father. Now, before we continue, we have to understand some basic linguistic principles. Most linguists recognize that a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in a language, like the T sound, S sound, or R sound. Obviously, these sounds may differ depending on the spoken language. Regardless, these phonemes are combined together to create words which create meaning. This is a concept related to semiotics, which describes the study of signs and symbols. Now, in semiotics, there is the signifier and the signified. The signifier is the thing, item, or code that we read, and the signified is the meaning being expressed. An example of this could be the English word tree. Tree is a combination of phonemes. These are what we would call the signifiers. The image of a tree that you recognize as connecting with these letters is the signified. Runes do not exactly function on this semiotic scale, but work within what is called phonosemantics, where each phoneme or sound that each letter makes carries inherent meaning. In other words, one meaning per phoneme. The word rune itself meaning letter. But what makes runic alphabets extremely interesting is the fact that they were also believed to be carrying magical properties. According to the sagas, these inscriptions could be used to predict the future, protect against misfortune, imbue objects with different properties, or create conjurations, cures, and spells. You can now see where this idea of inscribing weapons, armor, and objects with runes in order to give them magical properties comes from. It is in fact historical mythology. In the saga of Egil, the skald uses runes to cure a young girl who had been enchanted by false runes. He carved new runes and placed them under her pillow, and as a result the girl was healed. The moral of the story being that runes could be dangerous in the wrong or unable hands. From a cultural point of view, runes were often carved on burial stones in order to give us information about the person buried. However, sometimes on burial stones what we find is actually descriptions of battles and victories. Runes sometimes were also used as sigils, and they were carved or woven on clothing and armor. Objects that were offered and buried with runes may have been inscribed to serve some ritual function, but this is difficult to prove, because we don't have any unambiguous text that would confirm such a function. It is possible, however, to identify texts that are undisputedly religious in nature, or that refer to the supernatural. Runes were certainly used in texts that had magical purposes. Some runic texts do have wording such as "I consecrate the runes," which do suggest some sort of sacred act, but it is unclear what sort of act would be alluded to. The very act of inscribing an object might imply that some magic was aimed at, in the sense that adding lettering to an object would increase its intrinsic power. This usually mainly concerns amulets, but this is also implied by some texts on weapons found in bogs, such as on the Nidam axe. So in other words, when you write runes, you're not just writing texts for communication. In the minds of the people utilizing these forms of scripts, the runic texts would have supernatural connotations. And we reach this way the so-called burial gifts. Not easy to distinguish between a dedication made for a burial and a similar sort of inscription made for a living person. Nonetheless, many of the objects that were found in hoards, sacred deposits, and graves show traces of wear, indicating that these objects that we find in these graves had been used for rather a long time before they were deposited or buried with their owners. Although it is also possible that grave inventory may be regarded as a metaphor to express certain changes in society. Now let's talk about the types of inscribed objects. We do understand that the ancient Norse and Germanic people didn't really write on paper, so what did they inscribe more commonly their runes on? There is a difference between early inscriptions and later inscriptions. In early inscriptions, we will find runes written on everyday objects. Instead, in later inscriptions, we'll see that rune writers started to opt for more valuable or prestigious objects as the recipient of their runes. We do, however, find the following: jewelry, weapon parts, coins, boxes or containers, runestones, bone, pieces of wood, cremation urns, cave walls, and antler pieces. In conclusion, runes and their mysteries are still in circulation today and can be seen all over pop culture. The legends of Germanic mythologies and runes have helped inspire the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, DC Comics, Harry Potter, and much more. Alright, noble ones, well I hope that you enjoyed this video about the runic alphabet. If you did, please remember thumbs up, and if you're not yet members of this community, become a noble one, subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron, and don't forget to check out Viking Jewelry and their store and to make use of my code and the link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.